anniversary poem. I was hoping, especially if Roger were here. Is he coming back in for
He
this
is.
one?
He went down to show David.
Okay. Well, I'll give the introduction.
Okay.
Oh, he's going to show the face on it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to read for him separately then.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's for engineers. Anyone in here that engineers? But he's engineering downstairs. So I wanted to be here. But anyway, I was asked to write the 100th anniversary poem, and I did my research and came across someone named Theodore von Karman. He wouldn't mean anything to you because I never heard him myself, but he gave us one of the 10 most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century, the wind tunnel. Without the wind tunnel, we could not leave gravity and go to the moon. All right? So some of you are not old enough, some of you definitely are not old enough to remember that there was a bridge called the Galloping Gertie in Tacoma, Washington, when the wind got hold of that bridge and just curled it and curled it. And I remember watching it on television, and you can see people running off, dogs running off, and finally the cars just plummeted into the Tacoma Narrows. Now, von Karman taught at Caltech, and his closest friend there was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, who said imagination is more important than knowledge. And then they have a photo, or a painting rather, in the Athenaeum, the faculty center of the two of them. They're like the gods of the school and of the universe to the Caltech students, von Karman and Einstein. This is before Einstein went off to Princeton. All right, so now that bridge falls into the Tacoma Narrows. The governor calls von Karman, who has a very heavy Hungarian accent. He says, how can we fix this? He says, well, if you fix it in the same way, it will fall in the same way. All right? They take him to Washington, and they bring all the best minds to Washington, and each of them are at a table, and one stood up and says, I'm here to represent MIT, another says, I represent Georgia Tech, another says, I represent Carnegie Tech. Finally, apparently, von Karman stood up and said, I represent only the wind. He was the first one to believe, and at least look at wind as an ally rather than the enemy. He said, make diamonds and holes in it and let the wind go through, something as simple as that. But anyway, so what happens next is that we have Neil Armstrong going to the moon, right? And most of us remember, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But no one remembers that when he was getting on the module to get back to the mothership, he said, good luck, Mr. Gorski. And the press, everybody wondered, what did he mean by that? No one knew what he was talking about, right? So finally, over the years, he wouldn't talk about it. Apparently the Gorskis had passed away, and they got him in Miami and said, what did you mean by good luck, Mr. Gorski? He said, well, when I was a child, I still remember the Gorskis were my neighbor, and I was playing ball, and when the ball rolled under their window and I went to pick it up, I heard Mrs. Gorski say to Mr. Gorski, sex, you want sex, you'll get sex when the kid next door walks on the moon. Good luck, Mr. Gorski. There it is. So in any case, I wrote this poem as the anniversary, and I passed it through all the engineers. It's actually at NASA now, framed, and I love that part. Not NASA, but at the Jet Propulsion Lab over in Caltech. And so I had to read it at the commencement. So I had to pass it through all the engineers, make sure my language was said, you got it. There were no errors. That's okay. So let me trip through this one too. It's called The Birth of God from an Early Photograph. At first silence, a gas or two, a wind unchallenged, as if some breath were conspiring to leap a word across oblivion. It was to be a universe of light and sound, and calm, ethereal, a way to mirror a god's mirage through vanity. But still this wind, its whisper, like a protest growing syllables, echoes that would not wane. It was to be a simple creation, an exercise at most of mischief, to play at quirks like building blocks, replenished and diminished. And by its cycle, the god might gain dominion. We would call it nature. But still this wind, a pest, perplexing by some quirk of fate, escaped the boundaries of imagination. And worse, it grew aloof, a mind of its own, filled with thoughts of relative notions. What next? A march, a sit-in, a declaration of rights? By God, there can be no negotiation. I'm until the wind had found the future willing, it named itself Havoc, and in its wake propelled the span of the galloping Gertie, winding its last ride down Tacoma Narrows. Above the gimbal truss, the gods of intellect convened, as if to find what workings of its mind they fell to civilize or redeem. What renegade, what sorcery of force prepared the eddies of its face, or, since one could not know its face, that cylindrical funnel, tunnel of eyes that glowered space like oscillating plumes? What velocity, what sheer flow, what havoc wound the gods would overthrow? Until in boundless words against the gabled Athenaeum, like some histrion, bogarting the mock abyss of sound, a voice, sudden as a quantum leap, spoke the syllable of repair. Vin, I represent only the Vin. And havoc swooned a kiss, and an immortal gust of whim married all of gravity to space. And thus had God created human nature, a necessary fiction, like turbulence out of runes, so passionate even the good Lord could not presume. To the gods of intellect, nothing contained remained at absolute rest. To man, nothing soared so fickle as wind, and out of reach that we wouldn't chase it to the moon. I really want